Listen to the Vibes, hosted by Coyote Knight. Listen in for some positivity and good times. The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I have here the one and only Coach Campbell, and we've actually had a nice talk going before we decided to go on air. And I'm going to give him this opportunity to talk about him, where he grew up, his childhood, and the process to where he's at right now. So go ahead, Coach.
Kyle, thanks for having me. So first off, we're going to do the intro. We got to get back to that convo, man. We're talking Texas football and having a good time doing it.
Heck yeah.
So Houston guy, I grew up on the south side of Houston very early in life. Like Will Smith and Fresh Prince, my parents kind of moved out to the suburbs, kind of for my detriment, or for my betterment rather. And so I spent most of my years in the Cy-Fair area, so kind of 290. Local guy, played football at the University of Houston. My first hey, now we're talking. My first job out of school was with the Houston Texans. I worked in the marketing department, and just kind of to fast track, I really appreciated like the doors that football opened for me, but I was also like deeply curious of the entrepreneurial journey and like what that could open. And finally I got to a point, years later, where it's like, like I was born an entrepreneur. I've kind of suppressed that part of me for so long. Let me just go see what I can do and make an impact. And I think that's one of the things we talked about when we first started our convo, off air, was, there's so much impact that we as regular citizens can make, and how do we, find a way to make our communities better.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and by the way, thank you for Coach Tom Herman.
Oh, you can have him. You're welcome.
Hey,
so I will.
He's a great guy.
Tom Herman. Yeah, he's got some Calipari in him. I will say this, right? So, he was exactly what the University of Houston needed when he stepped in. No doubt about it. I do liken him to Calipari. I mean, I think there's so many promises that you can make to a kid, and he's a great coach. Let's get that on the table. Great coach, great scheme guy. A bit restless, and I think a little overambitious. I think that if Ohio State ever had a 7-5 season, which they probably won't anytime soon, but if they would, Tom Herman would be so distracted with that Ohio State job that UT would suffer. But I can say that he's what we needed at that time. And so I actually there's a kid, De'Aaron King, who he recruited. He played at a number of different places. He played at Westbury Christian, played at St. Pius, graduated from Manville 288 South. I actually coached against him when I was coaching at KIPP. But I've known the kid since he was 7 or 8 years old. I watched De'Aaron King starting in the third grade playing Little League football. Brought him in. De'Aaron actually just transferred out to Miami. He's a starting quarterback at Miami. Led that comeback. I'm not sure if you saw that Saturday night. He led that comeback against Louisville, but just a winner. And so that's the one thing I can say about Tom Herman is he was able to attract Houston guys to the University of Houston in a way that no other coach had in the past. And, we're better for it as a program. So hopefully he works at UT. I think Charlie left so much talent that, like you or I could, jokingly like win 9 games. I mean, that UT roster is absolutely loaded. And so, wish him the best when he's not playing U of H, but, we're going to pray for you, bro.
Man, you mentioned Manville. Man, I tell you what, you go through Manville and you blink, you missed it.
Well, so it's literally, it's growing so fast now You know, it used to be you go down 288, and once he got past the belt, it was like nothing, Despair, Alvin High School, nothing, Angleton, and then Galveston, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, the way that program has built in the last 10 years and the number of kids that they've sent to these programs. So Shadow Creek is a new high school out there. They opened in their first varsity, they opened in 2017. Their first varsity season was 2018, and they went to the state semis. They won state in 2019, 2 years after having varsity. I mean, and so the Manville kids got plucked to go to that school. There is so much talent. And if you think about it, from Pearland, they put Dawson up, Manville, it's just the talent just spread. So it's, you know, there is something in the water, you know, on the south side down there going, like we talked about the back end of LaPorte and Brazos Wood and all that. And, you know, those kids know how to play football.
Oh, all across Texas, there's so many talented people. And you can name star after star after star that came out of Texas. You know, me, when it came to football, that was my religion, you know. Anybody would say, where do you go to church? And I go, I'll go to the First Church of the NFL. We meet every Sunday,
right?
You know, about 3 times on Sunday, and we have services on Monday and then on Thursday.
Sneak a little Bible study in on Thursday.
But high school, I used to go to all the high school games, and it's hard to pluck me away from the TV on Saturdays because college, I don't care who's playing. It could be, you know, Timbuktu against who know what's, and I'd still watch because something about college football, man, to me is more exciting than any other football.
Well, that passion is there, right? So it's elite enough to where every Saturday you're watching a high quality game, but yet it's not, you know, I don't want to use the word corrupt, but the kids are still playing for the passion of the game and the university while not, you know, worrying about sitting out, you know, obviously COVID aside, right? Safety, but you don't have guys sitting out for a contract resolution and dispute. You got guys who are busting their tail because there's still another level to go. And, you know, the funny thing about, you know, the Austin area, you look at Westlake and, you know, there was a point where, like, I think the Austin area had like 6 NFL starting. So you had Nick Foles, you had Drew Brees, you had there's like 2 or 3 other guys. Oh gosh, the kid, he played for the Saints. Where did this kid go to school? He's a career journeyman now, but he was a man in college. Shorter guy. Matter of fact, I think he backed up Drew Brees for a year or 2. His name fails me, but you know, the cool thing about the Austin area is, you know, you get the football excellence of Texas, and you get the 4 true seasons, and so you're getting these kids who, like in the South and Houston, you know, you're playing football 7-on-7 all year. Well, these football kids are going to play baseball, so they're getting that power, that torque from baseball, and they're bringing it back to football. And I mean, you know, the Austin area was just spitting up quarterbacks for, you know, about a good 7 or 8 years.
Oh, I'll tell you, the kids around here can play some freaking football. All the high schools around here, even the worst high schools, they got some great players on them. But that's for sure. That's my plan Friday night. Even if they don't let us in the stadium, set up a chair just outside so I can still watch the game because I'm missing it, man.
So I live actually in Katy, and so in my backyard is the new stadium, the Academy Sports and Outdoors, whatever they call it. 17,000 people. And so when Katy plays North Shore, like those big rivalry games, Cinco Katy, that thing packs all the way out. I mean, and it rocks. I mean, so I think it may be bigger than the stadium downtown with the Dynamo play, like the pro soccer team. Mm-hmm. I think the stadium we have here packs out more people than the pro stadium. But you know, there's something about, you know, you do these podcasts and, you know, like you get to meet people across the country, and to ask you, like, is a Friday night thing real? Like, yeah, it's real. Especially, you know, the Baytown, just that, you know, just any time that you're right outside of a small major town like that, and it's, you know, the whole city shuts down. Dairy Queen closes, Whataburger closes, and it's just about watching Friday night football.
I cannot remember ever going to a game and that stadium almost being completely full. I mean, that was Friday nights, man. From the time I was in elementary school till even after I got married, we were always going to the high school games. Those kids,
it just becomes a part of the culture, right? So it's like just what you do.
Oh yeah. It is a religion in Texas, that's for sure. So tell me about your role with the Texans and how you got that position.
So this is actually, I guess, my second tour with the Texans. Immediately out of school, I worked. So you'll appreciate this. So at U of H, I was a kid who always just tried to leverage, right? So after football season, I went and interned in the sports marketing department at U of H for basketball and stuff. So my first cup of tea with the Texans was the equipment internship, right? And so you started when OTAs start, and it's just a grind at the end of the summer into ball camp, camp opening. And so literally I went from playing, for the University of Houston and throwing my laundry bag and jock strap and whatever into the equipment bin to being the guy pushing the equipment bin, hoping man, I hope that guy doesn't throw his jock strap upside my head, whatever, right? It gave me such a respect for the orchestra is the best word to describe it. It takes an orchestra for a football game to happen, especially, at the NFL level. I remember just hours and hours of brushing and scrubbing footballs and squeezing balls for the kickers this way and squeezing balls for the punters this way. And just, all these different nuances and just the people behind the scenes that don't get any of the glory, very little credit of making it happen. And so a couple of years ago, they reached back out, and obviously, I try to stay as active in the football community as possible. And I become a master trainer for USA Football. And so a master trainer is a person who teaches proper block and tackle technique and kind of as an advocate in your kind of micro ecosystem. And so they reach back out and will say, hey, you do a lot of stuff, within the community, and I maintain my relationship with them. I work the camps and stuff. And they said, hey, we need an advocate, to advocate for youth sports and again, tackle technique, block technique, but more than that, to help the community realize that Texans do more, I think, for the Houston community than they advertise and they get credit for. I mean, they give out tens of thousands of dollars of, grants for, field renovations, for equipment, after the tragedy in Santa Fe. There's just so many, one-offs that, the cool thing that I can say, being a Texans supporter and even a Cowboys fan, I didn't say this earlier, but as a kid, who was not a Cowboys fan? I was a kid in the 90s, right? So I had the shirt with the rings, right? But the Texans do such a good job of just being in Houston for Houston football. And so, it was a no-brainer. And so I lead a lot of our block technique, tackle technique stuff. We actually just launched recently, and I'll send you the link for this. We actually launched a program called FIS, which stands for Football in Schools. And so since we weren't able to physically get PE teachers and coaches to our campus to teach tackle technique and programming, we filmed a virtual program that coaches and teachers can then implement to teach to their kids, via Zoom and these different teaching platforms.
Uh-oh. There we go. You're back.
So yeah. So I mean, it is work, but it certainly doesn't feel like work because it gets done the right way and it's all authentic. And so, the Texans are just all about whatever we can do to move the culture forward and be here for the landscape of youth football.
Yeah. This might be out of your expertise, but are they still trying to come up with innovations to prevent concussions and CTE and all that?
Yeah. So there's a lot of So yes. So when 2015, 16, when the concussion thing became like a really hot topic conversation, there was so little, I think, science and data to help us figure out how to move forward, that fear really began to take over, right? So it's like, I'm pulling my kids out of football, and how many hits is enough, and how many lead to concussions. And that's one thing that the NFL, I can give them a ton of credit, is they went into it, feet first, trying to figure out, like, how do we figure out the science of impact. And one of the cool things that USA football and the NFL have adapted are these stages of contact. And so you think about, like, when we played, it was head to toe, helmet, shoulder pads. You were banging 5 days a week, all day at practice, right? There was no, walkthroughs. There were no, simulated reps. You were just banging until, like, snot came out of your nose and you did it again. Well, what they were able to determine from really just deep research and science research and looking at how pro teams practice is, yes, contact is important. Yes, full contact is important. But kind of, as we talked about previously, with rugby, like, the technique is what was missing, right? And so the idea, and I look back now, especially like in middle school, like, no coach taught me how to tackle. It was just get the guy down on the ground. And so, they began to really lean on rugby and other sports and other methods to figure out, like, yes, we can, make contact and high collision contacts, but do it safely. And so, to answer your question, yeah, I mean, the game is, from a safety standpoint, has changed, more in the last 3 years than it ever has. There's actually, UIL now has rules as far as, minutes allowed for contact. And so, you're allowed, I believe the last I checked, 30 minutes a week of live head to toe full contact. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not scrimmaging and you got shells on, and you're not popping, you're not, I mean, you're making contact, obviously. But, the idea that you need to take a guy to the ground, for 3 hours a day for 5 days, just, I mean, the science tells us that the game can be just as effective without the detriment, of the concussion side of it.
Yeah, I don't think the human brain or the human head can take more than, I think, 6 Gs. And
right.
The average hit, from what I understand, is like 10 Gs. So you worry about these guys. There's no padding inside that brain to keep your brain from joshing around.
Yeah, and and the other side about it is, I think you look at the strength and conditioning science, and guys are like, so obviously Lynn Swann passed away recently, and you begin to look at those highlights, and the first thing is you look at with those great players, and Emmitt Smith was like my favorite running back growing up. You look at how many missed tackles there were, right? So it's like, for every, like, towards the end of his career, like, hard concussion and guys getting set out, like, those great backs just made you miss. And so you think about that great back is 20 pounds heavier, 2 or 3 seconds faster or milliseconds faster. And that's Alvin Kamara, right? And so it's like, so, just the idea of a guy well put together and elusive, but just bigger and faster, and that defender is bigger and faster. So to your point, it almost becomes, the thing of, like, there's a science for everything. And so, football, I think, has caught up to the place where there's a science for tackle technique, there's a science for block technique. And, it's like, we can have a collision sport that, does, obviously, is violent, but also we can make it as safe as we possibly can.
Yeah, because I'll be the first one to admit, that's probably one of my favorite parts of football, is watching people getting smashed and that kind of thing. But at the same time, I still worry about these guys, because their lives have to go on after football. So do you? Go ahead.
I know. I was gonna say, there's a point when, like, the explosion was more celebrated than the tackle, right? So I would say, like, towards the end of, like, Troy Polamalu's career, not that I'm pointing him out, but just like that kind of time span when he would just blow guys up, and he had so much velocity that the man would go down. But Troy Polamalu wasn't making a ton of tackles. Like, he wasn't wrapping the guy, he was just blowing him up with his head and his shoulders.
Shoot, Steve Atwater, that guy could That guy could hit. Trying to think, man, I could sit here and name off a ton of them, but some of my favorite.
Ronnie Lott, all those guys, man.
Ronnie Lott, I met him. He is such a nice guy, and
Yeah.
you wouldn't believe it the way he used to murder people out on the field, but he's a super nice guy. He did. I expected him to be a little bit bigger than what he was, but I mean, the guy, what he played safety, right?
He's just compact. Yeah, he's just compact and just stout. Yeah.
So yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite running backs, Christian Okoye, that guy used to roll over people. Earl Campbell, yeah, that's how old I am.
Nightmare.
Dan Pastorini and Earl Campbell were quarterbacking whenever I first got into football. Of course, Roger Staubach and
legends.
Gosh, you remember when like Billy Sims and Walter Payton? Gosh, you just name off a bunch of them. But Earl Campbell, I think, was probably one of my favorites to watch when he bowled people over.
I think Earl Campbell, it gets hard. It gets hard. So when you try to describe like a player's running style or playing style now, so it's like really trying to say like, oh, this guy reminds me of so and so, or he right. I don't. So Earl Campbell, the closest that I can think of, like current day or like previous, and it still doesn't do it, is like Ricky Williams, because what
oh yeah,
the piece of Earl Campbell that people forget is his lower body was so large, and so he was fast, he was elusive, and so it's almost like he had the elusiveness of Barry Sanders with the power of Ricky Williams and the speed of whoever's going to fill in the blank. You were bouncing off of Earl Campbell. You weren't making a tackle, not by yourself.
Yeah, that's for sure. Ask the LA Rams.
Right.
Highlight reels, and he just runs right over him. Jim Brown.
That was a bad dude, man.
Jim Brown. Other
guy. So Jim Brown's a tricky one, right? So I would compare Jim Brown again, like I don't know, like current real time, but Jim Brown was a large man, or he's a large, like, so I would say like Eddie George. So Jim Brown did not run. I mean, Eddie George ran more stiff and just kind of upright, but I mean, I don't know his stats off the top of my head, but like Jim Brown is not one of those compact, elusive kind of stuff. Jim Brown came to give you a hard time.
Oh yeah, so you could tell
that was a big dude.
Guys, they came to play. You better be prepared.
Yeah, that's right.
So the things that you do with the Texans, you taken that further, correct? Where you help other people.
Yeah, so I think a part of what made me a good fit and what makes me a good fit for the work I do with the Texans is I do a lot in the community, and so. I started, I think, in 2015, my first turkey drive. And so, one of the things that's very important to me, I kind of shared a bit of my backstory. And, I grew up very early, kind of on the wrong side of the tracks. And my parents moved out or moved on. That kind of stuck with me, right? And so, I do believe that there are beautiful children and beautiful minds everywhere. And so regardless of whether where your parents set up shop to raise you or what school you went to, creating opportunities for kids and families who maybe don't have those same opportunities that, somebody else may have is one of those things that, just as a person within our community, as a citizen, I really do take seriously. So, from our scholarship foundation to our turkey drive to adopting families for Christmas. And, I think that we can do, and I don't use the word charity, right? Because it's not about necessarily me handing you a fish, but sometimes, the idea of pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, I do believe in, but there are some people you look and there's no boots on their feet. And so it's like, hey, let's get you to a place of being whole. And then also let me help you, kind of navigate and try to figure this thing out. And so, I think it's one of the things that make, Texas unique is it kind of, again, we talk for an hour and a half before we even started, right? But it's like we care for each other so
Mm-hmm.
much. And it's just, a thing that we all have in common of just wanting each other to be the best version of themselves.
We talked about the different hurricanes that have come through Texas through the years. And as long as I can remember, when you had a bad storm, hurricane, whatever, soon as it was over, not only were you cleaning up your own yard, but the neighbors were helping each other, cut down trees and haul off limbs and things like that. Everybody pulled together after those storms to get things back to normal as quickly as possible. And I mean, usually didn't take long at all, and we were back to doing things normal. Unfortunately, Ike left most of us without electricity for what, month, 2 months, but we got stuff done. We kept going. That's the way it is here in Texas. And some people don't realize the mentality, I guess, that from the time we were born was, if somebody is in need, then you try to help them the best that you can. It's like you'd said, you just need to pull up your bootstraps, but if you ain't got the boots, let me help you get that pair of boots. And it's not, oh, well,
Yeah.
you're just, oh, we should feel sorry for you, here's a pair of shoes or whatever. No, you're helping them get to the next level. That's very important for people to remember. It's like the preacher used to say, don't steal someone else's blessing. So if somebody wants to help you, let them help you. That karma brings something special back to their lives, and it may be seeing you succeed. That might be what they were meant to see. But to give people that sense of pride of, you can do it. Sometimes you need a little bit of help, but you can do it. I'm off my soapbox. Go ahead.
No, you're right. What I'll add to that is, and we talked, way more football previous than when we went live, but I'm getting to a point in my life where I understand, there were men in my life who I didn't personally know well, who knew me on the field and just wanted to support me because they wanted to see me do the best that I could. And I'm just getting to the point to where it's like, I get it, right? And so I kind of shared, earlier about De'Aaron King. So De'Aaron King, I watched from the third grade Northwest Panthers all the way through middle school. He went to St. Pius his freshman year, went to Westbury Christian his sophomore and junior year. I actually coached against him. Went to Manville his senior year, went to University of Houston. He transferred out with Tom Herman. His dad passed away about 6 months ago. And he's in Miami. I mean, so that's a great. So De'Aaron King is an NFL kid, and I've had a chance to watch that kid for 10 years, and it's, you don't want anything out of it. It's just, I want to see that kid be successful. I watched that kid learn how to become a leader. And so so he actually last Sunday morning led Sports Center, like that comeback they had against Louisville. They had MMA fights and NBA playoffs, but the lead story was this kid who is undersized, 5'10", maybe 200 pounds, but the kid just wins. And to add to what you said, it is something that we have unique as Texans. I just want to see that kid be successful.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not one of those things where, oh, well, look what I did to help that person. That's not the way we act around here. It's my neighbor needs some help. One day I might need help, and here you go. And if it comes back, you may not see it. Sometimes we don't get to see it. You're fortunate enough you get to see the product of helping someone, but that doesn't mean that whatever that special thing didn't happen. Once again, off of my soapbox.
Yeah. I had a birthday last Sunday, and I know yours is coming up, and that day, the actual day, out with my family, we kind of taking a walk. It's a walk before church and stuff, and I look over it. I'm like, you're only as blessed as you choose to realize that you are, and I don't do like super big fancy birthdays, but you know, like we talked about, you go have dinner with your family, and you know, you may go out with your guys and whatever. And leading up to my birthday, I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna do anything and just kind of sit around the house. But you know, it's like it kind of hit me like you're only as blessed as you choose to realize that you are. And it's like, you know, if you choose not to acknowledge or realize your blessings or the opportunities provided in front of you, or kind of something you said is like, I I enjoy it. Like giving is one of my spiritual gifts, right? So like when I give my turkey drive, it's not ego. That's not why you do it. It's like this is like if the people who receive the turkey knew that I'm actually enjoying this, you know, probably more than it's like, no, I'm doing this selfishly because it just feels good to do. And, you know, man, I think that kind of time back, you know, to my career and some of the things that I've done, you know, I really spent most of my 20s just kind of following that, like, what are my natural gifts and skill sets, and then what do I enjoy doing, and where am I supposed to be? And that's, you know, that kind of took me from the Texans to, you know, some time in education. And you know, the the, the ironic thing about COVID, I think, is there are some parents with some kids that they didn't understand that. I think there's some parents who realize now that they probably don't like their kids, right? Like, damn, my kid is bad, right?
Get that sucker out the house.
Right, like, you know, back it up, let that teacher deal with them, right? And so, you know, I think that's one of the things that, you know, people joke about hazard pay, and especially again during COVID. But it's like, you know, I think that the simplicity that we're all forced to live by, no matter how simple you live your life pre-COVID, you know, we're all living such a more simplistic life. And I think that it's shining a light on the fact that our teachers, our police officers, our firefighters, our frontline responders are so underpaid. Like there isn't a COVID stipend, let alone what your base pay should be. So the whole idea of not necessarily the celebrities and athletes should flip. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, like, if you are a professional, hardworking guy and you took a second to realize how little teachers get paid to deal with your bad kid in addition to the other 25 bad kids, you know. And so I think that it shines a light on the fact that, like, man, you know, there are some treasures that are teaching our kids that we've just got to, you know, kind of to your point, we got to celebrate these folks. They work hard.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. The teachers, I've always advocated for the fact that they don't get paid enough. You know, you get your measly whatever it is, 40,000 a year if you're lucky, and you got some kid that comes in and now he's making millions of dollars. Well, he wouldn't get where he's at if he hadn't had a teacher in the first place. So we owe it to our teachers. And another thing is we need to stop tying their hands up and making them spend most of the year teaching the kids how to take these assessment tests and actually teach them.
I think that yeah, no, I think that education is broken, like, obviously, right? And I think that education, in my opinion, the pain point of education being broken is the idea that every kid is a college kid, right? So there's some kids that you and I went to school with, and it's like, we're lucky if that kid put his shoe on the right foot today. And we're talking about like in high school, right? And that doesn't mean that kid's trajectory is any less than anybody else's. It's just that kid should probably figure out, or that kid should have the opportunity to figure out what his natural skill set is. Because again, that, you know, not being intelligent in math or science has nothing to do with their intellect. Right. And so if these tests are based in, you know, heavy math and science or whatever format, or even the idea of taking a formalized standard test, that kid we may be cutting that kid short 5-10 years. He should be in trade school developing skill sets that work naturally to him. Because again, like, that's what our ecosystem needs. We don't need that kid to rack up $50,000 in debt only to figure out college wasn't for me. I should have gone to a trade school. right?
Mm-hmm.
And that to me happens when you take the HVAC out of schools and the ROTC out of schools, and you take the shop out of school, and the mechanics and stuff. There's more than one way to learn. And with that being said, the idea of the super sexy IT tech engineer, it's like, yes, that's one path to live your life. But when your car breaks down, guess who you still got to go to? Like, you still need a guy to go fix your car. And so, the idea that there's a hierarchical value of education is flawed. And so,
Very flawed. Well, okay,
yeah, it's broken.
I'm gonna give you a good example. Okay, so I've done city work for 20 some odd years, and I work most of it in the water department. And so when you're out there in the field and you're trying to figure out how to put in a water system, what have you, there's a lot of factors to it, and sometimes you have to do things that aren't necessarily the way the book says you're supposed to do it, but it's the only way it's going to work. And here I am. I only got my licenses and stuff because they had an education extension program through Texas A&M. Everybody that works for the city pretty much goes, get your hours in, and then you go take a test. You got your license. But then you've got these engineers up at City Hall. They got whatever, master's degree, doing whatever they're doing, getting paid the big bucks. And then they design these systems and everything, and they think they know it all. And it doesn't work. We had a facility, and I'm not going to say the city, I don't want to embarrass them, but they had over $1 million facility built, and it didn't have the capacity to do what it needed to do, all because the engineers thought they knew so much. It's like, dude, talk to the guys that are actually on the ground doing everything. And then go ahead.
No, that's such a good point. And what I was going to say was, the other side to that is, because there's so much value on the sleek, sexy job, the engineer, the architect, whatever, you think about the guy who's problem solving, right? So it's like, there's one thing to sit and say, here's a problem, here's how I think we can fix it, versus the guy whose problem is sitting in his lap. Like, there's like water coming out of this pipe, this hose, this whatever. I have to problem solve on the spot. Mm-hmm. And so, there's not a standardized test to check pressure or responding to pressure under, tension. There's not a standardized test to quality of assurance of work. So to kind of back your point, we got to reverse engineer, I think, from a cultural standard, what we value. And so, that kind of brings me back to COVID. It's like, we value now, hopefully, the simplest of things, right? So like, making it from one place to the other is a thing that we should value. Making sure that we understand the base work of what happens. And yes, like you said, there's, other people that have a job, down the line to make sure things work. But the idea that, the person who's physically doing the work, like, that's the hero. So if your schematic doesn't work, then okay, guess who's going to have to fix it? The guy who's putting this thing together. And so he's typically the guy who gets the least amount of credit. He's a better problem solver than the guy, pushing pencils.
We have a school in the city next to us, right in Round Rock, and their high school is basically, it's a trade school. And so the kids come in, and whatever it is that they're, wanting to do in life, I don't know what all programs they have, but that's what they focus on. And of course, you got to have English, you got to have some math, these kind of things. But they're actually teaching them hands-on. This is how you do this job, whether it be a mechanic or whatever. And I think that all high schools ought to be that way. I get it. Not everybody learns the same way. I suck at math, but if I can, get my hands on something mechanical, a lot of times I can figure out how to fix it. I can't read the book to tell me how to do it. It's got to be hands-on. So just because a kid,
and to that point,
I was going to say, just because a kid is not making, straight A's, that doesn't mean that he's stupid. It just means he learns a different way than everybody else. And we can't put everybody in the same freaking category in every class. It's not fair and it doesn't work.
You know, the second half of my kind of birthday epiphany was, you know, there's so many, you know, wise, sage people who value nature, right? And they talk about like learning life's rhythms and patterns, and like nature reveals like, you know, like life. And so, you know, to that point, you think about a complicated math problem in a book is a problem. Carburetor not responding in 95-degree Texas heat is a problem. So the same way that the kid who is physically inclined, the classroom may not be his ideal place to solve that problem. You take that little math nerd and put him under a car at 95 degrees and put a book under that car, and let's see how well he solves that problem, right? So there's problems in both settings. It's just you got to create opportunities for both places for both kids to be able to solve problems.
Yeah, we have to fix the system where we can help these kids get where they need to go in life, because everybody is not the same. Everybody does not learn the same. You can't expect everybody to learn the same. When you got a kid in a class and everybody else is making A's and B's and this one's still making D's, this doesn't mean he's stupid. He just has, his brain is more inclined to do something else, whether it be, you know, physical labor like mechanic work or whatever. Heck, he might be good at fixing computers. He just can't do the math. You know,
Like physically fixing it. Yeah.
I mean, it just happens. I may know more about history than you do. That doesn't make me any smarter than you. It just means that's where my brain is inclined to absorb. And you might know how to.
Yeah.
You might know how to design a whole air conditioning system. I barely know how to put in the ductwork. You know.
Right. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Could not agree more.
we got off of football, but that's a good conversation. I think people need to hear that we need to do something better to help these children to succeed and not make them feel like failures because everybody else in the class is making better grades than they are.
Well, I think the takeaway is, you know, if we reimagine our country, if we reimagine our education system, if we reimagine our economy, the starting question is, how do we create spaces for everyone to contribute? And so kind of, you know, our conversation has gone football to education. I think that they're closely tied because I think that you can learn life lessons on the football field. I know guys like you and I certainly have learned hard work, adversity, respecting opponents, respecting teammates, you know, kind of as our call started, respecting teammates who maybe don't see every part of the world the same way that you do, but we've both got the same jersey on, so we're on the same team, right? And so I think that where we've got to figure out as a people is how do we build and design a country where we're pulling the best out of every single person, because we need every person to contribute. Like I need the mind of that kid who, you know, thinks differently than I do, or I need the mind of that young girl, super creative and can write poetry or can write a story or can write a song, right? And so when we create learning opportunities that pull the best out of people, it all kind of, it moves the needle forward faster than, you know, than any other way.
Exactly. So what is your future plans?
You know, it's funny. I've got, and I feel like I can share this with you. I get to travel quite a bit with my work, and you know, it hurts me to say that I don't know that Texas is the best state for high school sports anymore. There is, I think that we do youth sports better than as good or better than any other state. I think that we do high school sports as better or you know, good or better than any other sport. we lose so many kids in that middle school albatross. And you begin to look at, how does Florida do it? How does California do it? How do states like Colorado and others? I'm not saying that we're mimicking. What I'm saying is, one of the really audacious problems that I want to fix, I want us to be, without a shadow of a doubt, the best, the mecca of high school sports. And there's a chain broken in middle school, and you can go to Westlake Carroll, you can go to the east side of, the north side of Austin, the east side. It doesn't matter where you go, what demographic, what the kids look like, what sport. The coaches are so underwhelmed, not undertrained, not underqualified. If you go to the most efficient middle school practice, it looks like the rec hour at the jailhouse. I mean, there's the proportion of kids to coaches, the attention isn't there. And it's not that it's not unattended. They can't give attention to that many kids, right? And so, youth sports, in my opinion, stalls out 7th and 8th grade, and it kind of picks up in 9th grade. But then you may have lost that next, Michael Strahan, who went to Westbury High School here in Houston. Or you may lose that Mike Singletary, who went to Worthing High School. You may lose all the kids, so many great kids who just aren't getting the attention and aren't getting the experience they need in middle school, because it's overcrowded. And so that conversation is not a popular one, because I feel like as Texans, one of our downfalls is we hold our chest so high, but some of it is like, do we want to be good or do we want to be great? And sometimes you have to reconfigure big systems like UIL. I mean, UIL, it's not a great organization. It's good. It's not great. And, Texas is great. So we got to get that up to speed.
For sure. But, I could not live anywhere else but Texas, because I can't leave Whataburger behind.
What was your response when you were minding your business, walking down the aisle in HEB, and you saw that Whataburger ketchup for sale?
Oh my God. Hey, you know what? I've gone so far. My kids have bought me Whataburger T-shirts and like one of the managers up there, because I'm in there all the time, gave me a Whataburger Pez dispenser, and I've got cups and everything else.
I've got coaching buddies from all over the country, so I make like a Whataburger run a Whataburger ketchup run about once every other month, and pick up about 10 bottles of spicy, the regular, and I just ship them all over. My guys like, I'm out of ketchup, man. We some more ketchup. It's just, Whataburger is a part of what makes Texas amazing.
That's right. And they got the best tea.
Flat out.
I can just drink tea all day.
They put an In-N-Out burger not that far from me, and In-N-Out's good. It's not a terrible burger, but I ended up having like a knockdown drag out with the guy, and he's like, "Yeah, In-N-Out." So I said, well, "Tell me this. Who has the better cinnamon rolls?" Well, In-N-Out ain't got no cinnamon roll. Who has the best breakfast? In-N-Out ain't got the best breakfast. Who has the best chicken tenders? So then you get to burger and fries, which is subjective, right? But it's like, if I got 10 things on my list, and even if I spot you burgers and fries, you ain't even got, do you have a taquito? Do you have a breakfast on the bun? Do you have a honey butter biscuit? No? Oh, okay. All right.
My go-to is the jalapeno cheddar biscuit with sausage and cheese.
Oh, boy, you preaching now, boy. You preaching now.
You know how it is.
That's good.
Gotta have it. Gotta have it.
That's good eating right there. That is good eating. Oh man, that's good.
No matter where I've lived, I go to a certain Whataburger and I get to know everybody in there by name. So if you ever watch Cheers, you walk in the room and you hear, "Hey, Norm." That's what happens to me when I walk in there. I missed the one in Pasadena though. Pasadena.
The one on Strawberry Road?
No, the one on Southmore.
Oh, yep. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so I'd go in there in the mornings. Every morning I'd go, and then it got to where, because most of the time I just got tea. As soon as I walk in the door, they just see me and they hand me the cup. Then they just didn't even charge me. Just give me tea. Go ahead. So yeah, that was the highlights of my day.
Yeah. Even that culture is like that describes Texas. You know what I mean? And I had some family come in and it's like people out of state have a hard time understanding the scale, right? So it's like it's 4 hours to Dallas, it's 2.5, 3 hours to Austin, 2.5. 3. And so I tell people all the time, the most scenic ride in Texas, in my opinion, is I-10 to 71 to 123, the backside of San Marcos, kind of on up, 35 to Austin. Like you get everything that makes Texas Texas in those 2.5 hours.
Oh yeah. Well, you got to have a Whataburger and you got to have a Walmart. Got that?
Oh yeah.
I can move there. Yeah, we have an In-N-Out burger down the road from us. It's okay. I mean,
yeah, it's not terrible, but it's
not
like
terrible, but
it's not the same. We're not doing that. We're not having that conversation.
Yeah, when we first moved here, I told my wife, I said, well, this is interesting because you got an In-N-Out and next to it is BJ's. In-N-Out and BJ's. That's very suggestive.
Yeah, pizza and pepperoni. I see where you're going there.
Yeah, if you're ever in the Austin area, you got to find Craigos Pizza. Best pizza around.
I never had Craigos. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's how some people they wait and go to fancy restaurants for special occasions, anniversaries. That thing. Craigos.
Huh.
Gotta go to Craigos.
All right. I'll take it. If it's good enough, I'll try it. If it's good, I try it twice.
Oh yeah. Well, Marco's Pizza is a good go-to around here. I'm plugging all these people. They better pay me for it.
Yeah, check, right. Yeah, check, a gift in kind, a pizza, a pie, something. Yeah, no, I remember Marco's growing up, and they had the buffet, and they had the big, chunky, oversized, like, veggie slices, like the big chunks of bell pepper, the big chunks of onion on the pizza. And yeah, I remember Marco's Pizza growing up. I remember Bambolino's Pizza growing up. I don't know if you remember that. Remember Bambolino's?
I don't remember Bambolino's.
So there's only one left in Houston, and it's like in the Heights, like the yuppie side of the Heights.
Yeah.
But the one that we used to go to was like 288 and OST, and it was like a small, maybe like 30 square feet, kind of triangular, like a. You remember those old Whataburgers that was like only drive through?
Mm-hmm.
There's one off of like Woodridge and whatever. It was that kind of like, so you couldn't like eat, and you could sit there and eat or like take it to go. And I remember the pizza slice, like a New York slice pizza, and just the super big, just the box was just so big. And so I'm dating myself here, but I remember when I get home, I would take the pizza out and put it on a plate so I could keep the pizza box. And it was my Thundercat. It was my Thundercat car. I cut like a hole in it. It would be my Thundercat car.
Thundercat. Oh my God, I think I was in junior high when that came out, or going into high school. I forgot.
Thundercats was my jam, dude. I used to love Thundercats.
Yeah, well, those were the days. For anything out of the 70s was like my thing. So, $6 Million Man, the original G.I. Joe, then of course the cartoons. Love the cartoons. I miss those days.
I remember G.I. Joe cartoons, Mr. T cartoons.
Oh my God, yeah.
He-Man. Oh, dude, like Fat Albert. That's, and the funny thing about Johnny Quest.
Johnny Quest.
Remember Johnny Quest and
Space Ghost.
Yeah, man. Speed Racer.
Speed Racer. I
Yeah.
still remember the words to that song too.
Oh yeah. Here comes Speed Racer.
He's a demon on wheels. He's a demon and he's gonna be
Yeah.
chasing after someone.
After someone. Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Well,
Racer X.
it went from being cool cartoons to being basically a 30-minute commercial for some kind of toy. So that was kind of
Yeah.
disappointing as we got older. You know, I still remember some of the Scooby Doo's were new. I mean, it came out before I was born, but there was still cranking out new Scooby Doo shows when I was little. And you know, of course, the Super Friends and all that. God, to watch Super Friends.
Super Friends. Yeah. Now Super Friends was good, and Justice League, and what was the one? It was he had like a bird. He had wings, and he had like a white.
Birdman.
Yes. Yeah. Those were
The Hanna-Barbera cartoons, man.
Hanna-Barbera. Yeah, man. Yeah. That was good.
I used to love the Banana Split show. I don't know if you ever got to see that.
Mm-mm.
Oh, you have to YouTube it, but they have like little skits in between, and then they show like a little cartoon, or they had a live action one called Treasure Island, and I think one of the cartoons was Adamant, and God, I can't remember all of them. It's been so long, but
Yeah, man.
those Sid and Marty Krofft on Saturday mornings. We had Sigmund the Sea Monster. We had HR Pup and stuff. Land of the Lost. Electro Woman and Dinah Girl. You gotta look those up, man. If you have never seen them, you gotta watch clips of them.
Yeah, no, I gotta check those out. It's funny, our style of taste in like movies and cartoons like very similar. See, I'm gonna check that out.
I mean, they're corny,
Yeah.
but that was as a kid, it was cool, you know.
Yeah.
And
Well, and the other thing, kind of to your point, was like, so I do remember this. I remember being so fascinated with this G.I. Joe like plane, and I remember, you remember like you said, watch the cartoon or watch the commercials, and I remember I got it, I think for my birthday maybe, and I don't know why I thought that it would fly by itself, and I remember like getting the box and it says like, does not fly by itself, and I was like, why would they say that? Of course it flies by itself. Look at the commercial. But what I didn't realize the whole time was the guy was like, oh, you didn't even like notice the guy's hand. It was just like the plane flying. And yeah, he just like locked in on that stuff, man. And like obviously he still enjoyed it, but it's like it didn't even matter.
the first thing I ever really started collecting was Star Wars, and I was like 7 years old when that movie came out. And so, man, I had so much Star Wars stuff, and I wish I had that stuff still. I do. And then G.I. Joe came out just about the time I was getting out of toys. So I did buy a few of the G.I. Joes, and then you get into junior high, and all of a sudden your taste changed, and I got more into the sports and stuff. But to have those toys nowadays. OMG.
Man, I remember I have a cousin who finessed me out of a Sergeant Slaughter G.I. Joe for, I can't even tell you, it wasn't Cobra, but it was like, he got me. And like, we see each other frequently, and like every now and again, it'd be like, remember that time you taught me how to like my, oh man, like Sergeant Slaughter was the man, dude. And just
a wrestler and
G.I. Joe. We talk right at the same time. Yeah. Oh, speaking of wrestling, now we got to talk about Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. And oh man, I was a wrestling kid. I remember my ninth grade birthday, WrestleMania was in Houston at the Summit before it was the Compaq Center. And my grandma and I were in Home Depot. If you remember the one, it's closed now, but it's off of Meyerland, so kind of like on your way to the Summit. And we saw Hacksaw Jim Duggan buying 2x4s at Home Depot. I
Oh my
almost
gosh.
crapped myself. I almost crapped myself. It was the best thing ever. It was the best thing ever. Yeah.
Man, my friend's mom used to work at like this little Waffle House or something. So late Friday nights, Saturday nights, those wrestlers would come in to eat after the show. So my buddy had all these autographs, Jim Duggan and Junkyard Dog and
Oh, JYD, come
yep,
on, man.
Stagger Lee or JYD.
Yo.
But
Oh man.
was it Coco Beware?
Coco Beware, dude. With the bird on his back.
Woo!
Oh,
Oh man, that was wrestling, man. That was
yeah.
entertainment.
Those guys were showmen. Like, so yes, they gave you a great product, on in the ring, but they're out of the ring antics were, just as good, if not better.
Mid-South wrestling, man. And
Oh man.
what's his name? Oh my God, it wasn't Mean Gene. What's the other guy's name?
Is Mean Gene in the commentary with like the really bad like fro curly wig? I don't know what this hair. I always remember as a kid like, what's wrong with the guy's hair?
I can't believe I'm not thinking of this guy's name. He was always, commentating. He had so much to do with Mid-South wrestling, but he would do those commercials, and they'd have a close up on his ear with the earrings in it, and as it would pan out and say, if you think these make my ears look beautiful. And I forgot the jeweler now, but he would name whoever it was the jeweler was. Oh my God, those days were hilarious.
Man,
Staying up late
that's
watching
crazy.
goofy wrestling.
I remember WCW was like too risque. I couldn't watch WCW and Sting and those guys. I could watch WWF, but WCW, those guys were just too much. Like you can't. I was too young and they wouldn't let me watch WCW.
Things from our childhood, dude.
Right.
I was going to show you something, but it's put away. I had always wanted this. It was a space capsule that the $6 Million Man would use, and if you opened it up, it was a surgery table, so you could fix its bionic parts and stuff. And I always wanted one as a kid, and never could get one. And I finally found one in a comic book store, and I bought it. It even has a $6 Million Man in it, so I'm in heaven.
That's what's up. Right.
Spending all this money to buy the toys I didn't have as a kid.
As a kid, yeah, I do the same thing with shoes. So funny enough, I've worn a size 16 shoe since the 7th grade, and so
God.
this is like Jordan and all the Pippen and Charles Barkley shoes, but they literally didn't. They would stop, the size runs would stop at 13 and 14, and so it wasn't until older that years later they began to make them in bigger sizes. And for like 3 years, I just if it was nostalgic, it reminded me of something I couldn't get as a kid, I got it. And like you said, to a point where it's like, well, I don't have space, I don't even wear them, you give them away. But there is something to like the joy of getting as an adult what you couldn't get as a kid.
That's right. You know what they say about men with big feet?
They got big socks.
They wear big shoes.
Bro, this was a blast. I got my next show coming up in 10 minutes. I got to prep, but man, this is good. We got to do this again.
For sure, man. For sure. Stay in touch, because you come up here, we're gonna have to show you around. Well, I'm in Cedar Park, by the way, so we're
okay. Yeah. Yep.
Just north of Austin. The good part.
Yeah, I know exactly where you are.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day. And I want to thank everybody that tunes in and listens to us. We just like to jabber sometimes and be nostalgic. And
sometimes the best conversations.
It really is. I enjoy this, and much success to you, my friend. And I say keep in touch.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Have a great one.
Take care.